Hello, fifth graders. This is Miss Math, and in today's video, we will review adding decimals. Let's get started. When adding decimals, there are 3 steps we need to consider. The first one is aligning the decimal points vertically. The next step is adding trailing zeros as placeholders. And step 3, add the numbers and bring down the decimal. Let's look at some examples. Our first problem is add 3.61 plus 4.25, or another way of saying it is add 3 61/100 plus 4 21/100. So our first step is we are going to align the decimal points vertically. Why is that important, Miss Math? Well, I'm glad you asked, Sugar. In order for you to get the correct answer whenever you're adding and there are decimals and also subtracting 2, you have to line the decimals up together in order to get the correct answer. And if you see in our place value chart, whenever you're writing the numbers, you want to make sure that the values of the numbers are correct when you're adding them, because if not, then you will not get the correct answer. Now, for multiplication and division, it is different. However, for adding and subtracting numbers with decimals, always add or align the decimal points one on top of the other, or another way of saying it is vertically. Now let's look at our step 2. We are going to add trailing zeros as placeholders. Now what placeholders mean is not necessarily in this example do we have to add the zeros, but we did. There will be other examples we will see where we do need to add the zeros just to make sure we understand and know when we're adding that we are adding correctly. So we could put these zeros here, but we really don't need them for this problem, okay? So our step 2 was adding trailing zeros as placeholders. Let's look at step 3. What we need to do is add our numbers and bring down the decimal. And we're going to start from right to left, adding our numbers. So 0 plus 0, of course, is 0. Now we're moving to the hundreds place. 1 plus 5 is equal to 6. 6 plus 2 is equal to 8. That's the tens place. And then in the ones place, we have 3 plus 4. That is 7. Don't forget, bring down that decimal. And that is it. Our answer is 7.86, or 7 and, because when we see the decimal, we use the word and, 86/100. Let's look at another example. Add 2.84 plus 3.7. Now, before we go over our steps, let's look at this number. We see that there are 3 numbers in one of the values and there are 2 numbers in the other value. Let's see what we do when we have a problem like this. We remember our steps. We're going to align our decimal points vertically. We're going to add trailing zeros if we need them as placeholders, and we're going to add our numbers and bring down the decimal. So in our step 1, we write in our place value chart 2 in our ones place, 8 in our tens place, 4 in our hundreds place, plus 3, which is in our ones place, 7 is in our tens place. Do we have a number in our hundreds place? We don't, which leads me to step 2. This is where we add our trailing zero as a placeholder. Now, it doesn't change the value of the number. It's just so as a reminder, just so that we don't have a blank space. Because sometimes students will be like, well, I need to put something there, and they'll just write a number, but that number, if it's anything other than 0, will make the problem wrong. So that is why we put 0 as a placeholder. In this example, yes, we want to put it there so that it could help us as we're adding. Now let's start again. We're going to add from right to left, starting with our hundreds place. 4 plus 0 is equal to 4. Then we have 8 plus 7 is equal to 15. Okay, so we put our 5 down in our tens place, and we are going to carry our 1 in the ones place. Same as we do with whole numbers, nothing new, nothing jazzy up about it. When we use decimals, we're going to still add our numbers the same way, okay? We carried that 1. So we have in our ones place 2 plus 3, which is 5 plus 1 is equal to 6. And our answer is 6.54, or another way of saying it is 6. We see a decimal, we're going to say and 54 hundredths. So 2 and 84 hundredths plus 3 and 7 hundredths or 7 tenths is equal to 6 and 54 hundredths. Let's look at one more example. We are going to add 52 plus 1.46. Our first thing we need to do is we need to align our decimals vertically. Now, if you notice, 52 doesn't have a decimal, right? So I know you're thinking to yourself, well, where did that decimal come from? Glad you asked. Whenever you're dealing with whole numbers, even if it doesn't have a decimal, we know that there's a decimal right behind the ones place. So even though it doesn't have, 52 doesn't have a number in the tens place, it still has a decimal. We just don't put it because it's a whole number, okay? So in our place value, we have a 5 in the tens place, a 2 in the ones place, plus we have a 1 in the ones place, a 4 in the tens place, and a 6 in the hundreds place. Now, in looking at that 52, we don't have anything in the tens place or in the hundreds place. Our decimals are lined up right. What do? We move to step 2. We are going to add our trailing zeros as placeholders. So now that we have that, we know we can add our numbers and we can bring down that decimal. Starting from right to left when we're adding, we're going to start with our hundreds place. 0 plus 6 is equal to 6. And you notice that even though we put that 0 as a placeholder, it doesn't change the value. Moving to the tens place, 0 plus 4 is equal to 4. Now let's add the ones place. 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. And then in the tens place, we just have the we have the 5 in the tens place. So we just bring down our 5. And our answer is 53 and 46 hundredths. And that is it. This is our review of adding decimals. We know that anytime we add our decimals together, we are going to, what's step 1? We are going to align the decimal points vertically. Step 2, we're going to add trailing zeros as placeholders. And we had 2 great examples of why we do that and what we need to do. Whenever there's just a space missing, we know we can add a 0 and we can go ahead and add or subtract like we need to. And step 3, we are going to add the numbers and bring down the decimal. This has been Miss Math. I'll talk to you soon.